That's an interesting point. You said it's unclear how many Americans have the courage to decry government abuses that the majority tolerates or applauds. What has happened to the people of this country that they would tolerate or applaud abuses, violations of the Bill of Rights?
Several different things.
Is it something in the water? I mean, what's happening? What's happening to people in this country?
It has been surprising, especially in the last few years, how easy it's been for the Bush administration to nullify rights. I was also surprised at how easy it was for the Clinton administration to demagogue against the rights of gun owners, for instance, I was amazed at how easy it was for the Clinton administration to basically cover what they did at Waco in a fog of lies and avoid any responsibility for it. As far as the type of abuses that people tolerate or applaud, Bush's power to label people as enemy combatants. Many people think, well, this is a necessary power because these folks were out to get us. But there was a federal exchange in federal court in late 2004. Federal Judge Joyce Hens Green was asking a U.S. attorney, one of the top people in the Justice Department, a hypothetical. Say, for instance, there was a little old lady in Switzerland who sent a donation to an orphanage in Afghanistan, and unbeknownst to her, some of that money got passed on to Al-Qaeda. Could that little old lady be classified as an enemy combatant? And according to the Bush administration lawyer, he said, sure, she can be classified as an enemy combatant, and thereby the Bush administration would have a right to confine her to Guantanamo, for instance. It makes sense to have a vigorous system to protect America against, especially Al-Qaeda, a foreign group that has attacked us viciously in the past and killed thousands of Americans. But there is no reason that this has to be lawless. And with the way that Bush administration is structured, it has been lawless. It's based on the president's edict. This stuff on enemy combatants, the Bush administration has fought like a tiger to avoid having to produce any evidence to a judge to show why someone is locked up in perpetuity. Another example of that is the torture scandal. It's amazing to flash back to those simple times 4.5 years ago. Who would have thought that the U.S. would have an attorney general who was perhaps best known for his advocacy of torture? And yet that's what we have now with Gonzales. Ashcroft also played along with that enthusiastically. And there have been some rulings from the Bush administration on this. They have insisted that they have the right to use evidence gained via torture in their judicial proceedings on people accused of being enemy combatants. I mean, this is basically turning the clock back to about 1307. The whole idea of using basically coerced confessions. I mean, here again, looking back 4 or 5 years ago, who would have expected this from the American system of government? And there is a downward speed here. Who knows where it's going to go next?
Scary. That's something else you mentioned in your book. As long as rulers are above the law, citizens have the same type of freedom that slaves had on days when their masters chose not to beat them. How does that apply to America today?
Say, for instance, there's a de facto ruling that FBI agents are not bound by the law. And if an FBI agent shoots and kills an innocent American, then the FBI agent faces no penalty. This has happened in a number of cases. The most prominent was Ruby Ridge out in Idaho, where the Clinton Justice Department fought tooth and nail to basically claim sovereign immunity to block the state prosecution of the FBI sniper that killed a mother holding a baby in a cabin doorway. But there have been a lot of other cases where other federal agents, DEA agents or other armed federal agents, have abused the rights and sometimes shot and sometimes killed Americans. And these folks are almost never held liable. And if these folks have a de facto right to shoot or wound or maim Americans and don't face the same type of penalty that you or I would face, then they are a legally superior class. We are their inferiors, and we are in danger every time they are around.
We're talking with Jim Bovard. His book is Attention Deficit Democracy. Well, we have all these problems, and they're serious problems. They're probably going to destroy the country, probably get worse before it gets better. But when we have to clean up the mess, when we finally get back to bringing in a Bill of Rights culture, bringing America back to America, what do you think we're going to have to do? What are we going to have to do to bring back or to have a country that's worth living in?
Well, one of the first things is to restore the rule of law, to place the government back under the cage of law. Another thing is to stop falling for the myth of democracy, the myth that democracy somehow automatically protects people. It doesn't matter how much power the government seizes. Basically recognize that force is the essence of government. And that doesn't mean that we have to abolish government, but that's a reason to minimize government, because otherwise we'll end up maximizing coercion. And the more expansive government is, the more perils people face in daily lives, be it from IRS agents or from child support services or from other agencies that are often have little or no legal restraints on their power. Americans have to recover enough self-respect to become intolerant of official lies. People are so docile right now, it is almost as if good government means when the politicians lie to us for our own good, for the public good, and bad government is when politicians lie for their own selfish interests. And how is it possible to tell the two apart? You have to trust the politicians that tell you which is which. This is the standard, what this country is becoming. It's important to recognize in politics, positive thinking is often the slave's virtue, something people do to con themselves about the burdens and chains being placed upon them.
Just so people don't think that you're serious all the time.
Okay.
I have one final question to ask of you. In your notes here, you say, what brand of beer should Americans drink to kill the political pain?
Well, personally, I've always been biased in favor of Pilsner or some good solid lager. I mean, I have to wonder, things have really gotten worse in this country as more people start drinking light beer.
That's a good note to end on. Jim, I want to thank you very much for being on Talkin to America. I've been your host, Aaron Zellman. Our guest today has been Jim Bovard, talking about his new book, Attention Deficit Democracy. Please remember that if you don't defend your rights, don't complain when you lose them.
Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of JPFO.org or its members. Talkin to America is a production of JPFO.org.